Hi everyone, this is how to install Kali Linux and VirtualBox. This tutorial assumes you've already installed VirtualBox and have it working properly on your computer. However, if you don't, here are the directions for installing it. We are going to start right with the installing of Kali Linux. This screenshot may be a little bit old, but it still looks like that. So we're going to go to the Kali Linux download page, and we want the installer images. And this is the current version, 2024.2. They have 1, 2, 3, and 4 for each quarter they release one. This is the guy we want. We want the ISO. So click on him. And my antivirus thinks that Kali Linux is a virus, which, yeah, used wrongly, it could be, couldn't it? I'm going to turn my antivirus off for now. Disable it. I'm going to try again, and there it is. I have my Kali Linux ISO. By default, everything gets downloaded to the downloads folder. So that won't take, depending on your internet access, it won't take too long to download. Once that's downloaded, you will want to install Kali Linux and VirtualBox. Now I already have one in here. I'm going to remove it. Anytime you remove a virtual machine, don't forget to delete all the files. There we go. So I'm going to create a new. Now we only need a Kali Linux once. Even if you use this in multiple classes, Kali Linux is Kali Linux. So I want to do Kali Linux. That's where my stuff gets stored. And we do want Linux. That's the major subdivision. And down here we should have one called Debian 12 Bookworm 64. That's the version of Linux that's underneath Kali Linux, Debian. It's one of the major branches of Linux. We will click Next. 2 gigabytes of RAM is fine. 1 CPU is fine. I'm going to bump the RAM up because I've got 64 gigabytes in my machine. If you have 32, you're good too. So I'm going to bump it up to 4096. That'll just help it run a little better. You do not have to do that unless you have at least 16 to 32 gigabytes of RAM. All right, so I've always thought that might be a little bit too small. Now remember, virtual hard disks don't expand any bigger than they need to be. So I'm assigning this to be 50 gigabytes, but it's not going to use 50 gigabytes. Next. And there are all my settings. Click Finish. There it is. Before we install Kali Linux, we're going to change just a couple of settings to optimize VirtualBox for Kali Linux. Right-click on Kali Linux. Go to Properties. In System, let's see, System Processor. We're going to enable PAENX. I'm not sure what that is, but I think it helps this work better with virtualization extensions on your CPU. And then we're going to go to screen memory. This just allows the display to look a little nicer. Well, we'll go ahead and, my OK's down there. Let me bring it up. Yep. OK. Now we click Start. And it's going to fail because we have a brand new piece of hardware. The hardware does not have a hard drive. I mean, it has a hard drive, but there's nothing in it. It's a blank hard drive, just like we bought a new computer. So I'm going to go here and browse, or go to Other, where my DVD is located. I have all of my downloads underneath a Downloads folder. And since these are all ISOs, I have all my ISOs underneath an ISO folder. And in here I have the latest version of Kali Linux. See, it has the 2024-2. I'm going to double click on that and mount and retry the boot. That should launch us into the install, which automatically it says graphical install, which is perfectly fine. Hit the enter key and away we go. Let's see if we can make that a little bigger. And there's a bunch of choices. I'm probably going to work in English and the United States. I'm going to use American English keyboard. Now we're loading some additional installers or additional information and components to help the installation. Now at this point, it should connect to your network. So I'm going to call this Kali Bill. That's not the name of my virtual machine. That's the host name of my Kali Linux installation. And the domain name can be whatever you want. I'm going to call mine billthecomputerguy.local, which does actually happen to be my domain name here at home. Continue. We have a user. Well, I'm going to stick with the standard settings that we use in a lot of our labs. I'm going to use user in lowercase. Now with Linux, everything is case sensitive. So user with a lowercase is different than user with an uppercase. So we continue, and I'm going to keep user as the username. My password is going to be PASSWORD01 with the P capitalized, just like we do with most of our labs. And continue. We are in the Mountain Time Zone. You may not be, but I'm in the Mountain Time Zone. Pick whatever time zone works for your time. And we are going to use the entire disk. We're going to use the guided setup, use the entire disk. This is what our virtual disk looks like in VirtualBox. You can see it says ATA, VirtualBox, hard disk. That identifies our local hard disk. So we go continue. We're going to put all of our files in one partition. And this confirms what it is that we're going to do. Just like Windows, we have a swap file. A swap file or a page file is used to store things that the CPU and memory don't need right now, but may need earlier than just storing it all together on the hard drive. So virtual memory is an extension of your regular physical RAM. We continue. Do I want to make these changes? Sure. I'm going to say yes and continue. And I think it's going to go for a while installing stuff from the ISO. Yes, it is. There it goes. You notice in the installation instructions I said go do something else like your homework. In IT, quite often what we do is we start things in motion and then you switch to something else. And then when that's started into motion, you switch to something else. Sometimes things can take a very long while. If at this point you don't get this selection of software and it says something about a network issue, you probably want to remove your virtual machine and go to Machine and Settings. I mean, you want to delete it, or maybe just go to Machine and, go to Machine and, you may want to delete it and then go to Machine and Settings. Sorry, I said that wrong. And make sure this is connected to a card that has internet access. You want to make sure this, if you have a laptop, you want to make sure this is connected to your laptop. Your wireless on your laptop. In my case, everything worked fine because it's showing our selections. There's really nothing we need to change in here, and we're not going to change anything. So we'll click continue, and this will retrieve the type of files that we need. It's going to come from our installation media, but the operating system did need to communicate with the upstream to configure the APT. APT is the Debian or Kali Linux package manager. It's how you install and uninstall software in Linux. There's different package managers. What else do I have? Pacman. Yeah, PACMN is the one I use when I'm updating a particular C++ set. And I can't remember what Fedora's is. I think it's Yum or something like that. Regardless, this will go for a little while. Do some more homework, go on to another project, come back when it's done. At the end of all of that, after you've finished your homework, you come back and yes, you're going to install the grub bootloader to your primary drive. That means that the primary drive will boot Kali Linux. So this changes how the hard drive works. When the hardware, which in this case is virtual hardware, is ready to turn over control of the computer to the operating system, the grub bootloader says, oops, here we go. I'm going to start up the operating system. So we're going to continue. Here is our hard disk. So we want to choose that. And then it's going to install and finish the installation. May take a few minutes. It's going to reboot. And then you'll be able to log in with your username and password. At this point, everything is installed. Click Continue, and it's going to reboot into Kali Linux. As it's rebooting, there we go. If you go to Devices and Optical Drives, you notice that Kali Linux automatically removes the ISO. So you don't have to worry about installing and installing again. And yep, here we go. There's our operating system. I'll make this a little bigger. It's time to log in with our username, and password. That should take you to the desktop. And as I stretch this, notice how it resizes. You may have to go to View and turn on Auto Resize Guest Display a couple of times, flip it back and forth, but then eventually you'll be able to make this whatever size you want, which is pretty handy. All right, next step. We have a screen lock that is aggravating because when you're busy working, suddenly you go away and do something else and come back and Kali Linux has the screen locked. You have to type in your password again. Not my favorite pastime. So if you go to the Start button, there's Settings right there. No, we want Settings Manager. Okay. So I'm going to type in Settings, and there's Settings Manager. There's all of our settings for Kali Linux. We're going to go down to Power, which is down here somewhere. Yep, Power Manager. We're going to go to the Display tab. I'm not going to worry about Power Management because it's a virtual machine. I don't ever want it to blank. Now we go to the Security tab. I don't want the session locked at all, so I'm going to turn that off. Oh, sorry. I think you have to go down one more. Oh, there it is. Never. Automatic lock the session. Never. I don't want the session locked. And then we click Close. One of the other things, just like any other operating system, any other computer, oops, I was dragging this to the center, we want to update it. And in Kali Linux and Debian Linux, which is what this is based on, we do sudo, which temporarily elevates our privileges to the root or administrative level. apt is the package manager. Update means that we want to get all the updates for Kali. So press enter. Since we are elevating, we have to type in our secret password. And sometimes I don't type it in right. All right, let's type in the secret password again. Oh, yep, there it goes. So now it's saying it has, holy smokes, 860 packages can be upgraded. Well, just like anything else, I'm going to do supt upgrade. I'm going to do -y because I don't want to have to answer a bunch of questions. That's what the -y does. So we're going to upgrade all of those packages. And that's going to take a while. So after you press enter, it's time to go on and do some other homework. After this part's done, you'll probably want to restart your Kali Linux, but it's ready to roll for our next labs.